I used to be a doctor, now I work at a factory. And when I first started working at that factory, obviously I didn't put that shit in my, I didn't put MD in my resume. I just put my undergraduate stuff, you know, a couple of jobs here and there. I didn't have much to put because if I put the jobs I really worked in the past 10 years, then it would have given it away. If somebody was paying attention, it would have given it away. But so I got the job, and I put things together all day. I'm not gonna go into too much detail of exactly where I work, but I deal with metal objects, and they're, components that I build for different systems and stuff like that. And I get to use big tools all day, power tools, and I love it. I fucking love this job. Holy shit. They just put me in a corner, give me a bunch of materials, and they're like, all right, build this. All right, build it. I test it out to see if it works right. If it doesn't work right, I troubleshoot it, I fix it. Sometimes if somebody else fucks something up, I take a look at what they're doing, fix it, whatever. And I've always been a mechanically inclined person. I've always been a person that likes to work with their hands, so it just fit perfectly. You know. Now, the guy who was training me on this job, we ended up getting fairly close. We don't hang out outside of work or anything like that, but I took a liking to him, you know, and we've shared a lot of, I would say, fairly personal things with each other about our lives, since we've been working with each other. And I kind of think that he started recognizing, like, I mentioned to him, like, yeah, I went to college, this is that and third. I didn't go into too much detail. But I think he started picking up the fact that, what's up with this college thing? I think maybe this guy's done a little bit more than what he's leading on to. There's a lovely spider right now that's throwing a line down, going down, 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 down. I love spiders. I never kill spiders. I've killed spiders before, but I regretted it. Anyway, so I think this guy started catching on to the fact that it's like, this guy knows a lot of different things. Maybe there's something going on here that I don't know about. So he asked me a very direct question. He said, what's the highest level of education that you've achieved? And I said, if I told you, I don't think you'd believe me. He said, oh, well, you got to tell me now. He said, I reached a doctorate level of education. He says, get the fuck out of here. He's like, do they know? Right? Does the company know this? Like, if they knew that, they would make you a supervisor immediately. I said, nah, they don't know it. I didn't fucking put that on my resume. He's like, why not? I said, dude, because it wasn't fucking relevant for the job that I was applying to. Like, it's the fuck. I'm like, nobody cares. Like, nobody cares that I'm a doctor or doing the job that I'm doing. They just need somebody that has a fairly sensible brain, some common sense, and two hands that work, and eyes. So he says, hold on. He says, you're a doctor. He's like, what did you study? I said, I studied medicine. He said, "Oh, hold on." He said, "You're a doctor. Like, you're like a medical doctor." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Wait, hold on." He says, "Actually, yeah, it's good you didn't put that on your resume because they would have probably thought you were nuts." What the fuck are you doing here? Okay, man. Listen, I lived that life. I tried it out. Graduated medical school. I went to residency for a little bit. It just wasn't for me, man. It when I say it wasn't for me, it kind of sounds like a very like generic type of answer. Oh, it wasn't for me. No, serious. No, really, really, really. You ever been in an environment before where you feel totally out of place, like completely out of place, and there was something in your head before you even went to that environment? There was something in your head telling you, "Don't go. You don't want to go there. Why the fuck are you going there?" But again, I bought into the societal stereotypes and the societal pressures of trying to be something more than what I already was, not knowing that I already was everything that I needed to be. Okay? I had a point to prove. Before going to medical school, before even going to college, I was never a kid that was oriented to going towards any kind of academic discipline whatsoever. I was oriented towards prison. I was oriented towards drugs. I was oriented towards violence for a large part of my early life. And at some point I broke out of that. How did I break out of that? There was a time I was about, I'm gonna say I was 18, 19 years old, around there, and I was renting out an attic in a suburban neighborhood. So I lived in a nice house, but I lived in the attic of this very nice house. And the rest of the family lived below me. It was a Mexican family, nice family. So I was living in this attic, and one day I had the window cracked open, and I was sitting by the window smoking a blunt. And I'm sitting there smoking my blunt, and it's a nice, beautiful, sunny, early summer day. And right next door, there's another beautiful house. And I can see from the attic view, I could see down into the backyard. And when I was looking into the backyard, I saw that there was a man playing with his kids. They had a little pool, they had some toys, whatever, some water guns, and they're running around playing and having a fucking blast, right? And as I was sitting there smoking this blunt and watching them, I had this sudden realization dawn on me. I had this realization that I would never, if I was to continue living the life that I was living, I would never experience the kind of happiness that I saw that man and those kids experiencing. And that was sad. That was really sad when I realized that. I recognized at that moment that my luck was running out. I had gotten away with a lot of things. I had had several brushes with death. And I felt my luck running out. I don't know if anybody listening to this has experienced that. I think some of you have and may know exactly what I'm talking about. I felt like my luck was running out. And that soon, very soon, if I was to continue doing what I was doing, that I was going to end up in prison for a very, very, very long time. Or that my life was going to be cut short. And there is absolutely nothing appealing about prison. Nothing. If when I was younger, because at that point I was probably 19 years old. When I was younger, probably like 16, 15 years old, prison was something to be glorified because that was where you earned more stripes. That was where you made connections. That was where you became a certified badass. Had enough of a taste of jail to recognize the fact that this is fucking dumb. Number one. Number two, I also started to recognize the fact that I'm 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 fodder for the system, being a prison, right? Like the good thing I would say about myself is that very early on, um, around the age of 5 or 6, my mom refused to put me into kindergarten. She refused to put me into kindergarten because she didn't want me to become um, indoctrinated too early on into the educational system. And so she opted to just leave me at home and give me a bunch of books to read. And I think it's one of the best things that she ever did. I consumed books like food from a very early age. So even though I was a quote unquote thug on the streets, I was not only just, I don't want to say intelligent, I had a certain level of intelligence, but as I was also very well read. And I was one of those kids that would be hanging out in the street with a pistol in his pocket, a pocket full of crack, and when things were slow on the block, I would be in the library, reading about all types of shit. Reading about government, about religion, about occultism, mysticism, law, everything. Everything. I would get my hands on anything that looked just vaguely interesting, and I would just start reading it, right? And it was good. And then at some point, I got so brainwashed by the thug culture. I got so brainwashed by the thug culture that at some point I started to believe that reading was stupid, and I stopped doing it. I started to act like the other idiots that surrounded me. And I remember I told, this was about 8th grade. Was it 8th grade? Was it? No. It was 9th grade, first year high school, English class. Mrs. Yates. She was a publisher. And she tried to have us read some book for homework as an assignment. And I told her straight up, I was like, I'm not going to do this assignment. She said, why? I said, because I don't like reading. I fucking hate reading. Reading is stupid. Idiot. She said, oh, really? That's what you think, huh? I said, yeah, that's what I think. And she tells me, and she challenges me now, right? She says, I'm going to bring a book to you, and I want you to read it. I need you to promise me that you're at least going to give it a chance. And then after reading that book, I want you to tell me if you still think that reading is stupid. Challenge accepted. Fuck off. You're not gonna beat me. Your book is retarded. She brings me the book. It's a book called Down These Mean Streets by Piri Thomas. I took it the first night. I went home, cracked it open. Let's see what's up with this bullshit. I read the first couple of pages. I was hooked. I was in. I finished. The book was maybe about like this thick. I don't know, 100-something pages. I ended up reading that whole thing in like 2-3 days. Just consumed it. Came back to her after those 2-3 days, and I handed it to her and I said, thank you. That was a really good book. And you should have seen the smile on her face. She said, I got him. Oh, yeah, she got me. She got me. She got me. And it reignited my love for reading. And I realized at that time, maybe one of the reasons why I fell out of love with reading is because I stopped. Well, first of all, I really didn't have anybody around me to recommend me good books. I didn't really have internet access like that. I mean, internet wasn't the thing that it is now. But I didn't have access to the internet. I didn't have people around me to recommend good books for me to read. And I stopped searching for genres that I would actually entertain, right? I would go to the library, like I said before, and I started coming across books that were just boring, you know? I would just pick up random things on the shelf, and some of the things were boring. Or I didn't have the patience to sit there and, like, really go through the whole thing from front to back and you know, and really, like, get the whole picture kind of thing. So, anyway, I say that to say, I don't even know where the fuck I was going with this, but I'm a doctor that works at a factory. Or I should say, I got a medical degree as a doctor of medicine, and now I work at a factory. And some people would think, like, damn, if they just looked at that on paper, they'd be like, damn, what? This guy must be depressed as hell. This guy, like what went wrong? Little do they know how much everything went right. Little do they know how much, I'm not gonna say victory, because I haven't really feel like I've gotten the victory yet, but I feel like it's coming. I still feel this desire to make something of myself. But I want to make something of myself in the image that I am. Now I remember where I was going with that whole tirade. So I went to medical school because I wanted to prove a point. I had people telling me that I was going to end up homeless on the streets. I had people telling me that I was going to end up on the FBI's most wanted list. I was a bad kid. I was a really, really bad and angry kid. Really, really bad. Like, I would, like, me now as a grown-ass man, I would not want to deal with that teenager that I was. Like, hell no. Hell fucking no. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. You know, and I really apologize to the adults that had to deal with me. But I made it through all that shit, got out on the other side. You know, it took some time for me to really transition into being a law-abiding citizen, for the most part. And I remember going to my guidance counselor when I was in community college, and her telling me, I went to her telling her, yeah, I want to go to med school. I suddenly just got this thing in my head. I'm like, I'm going to med school. I'm going to be a doctor. Because it's the hardest fucking thing to do. And I just started, like, getting this itch where I was like, I just want to do the hardest fucking thing, the thing that nobody's going to fucking expect. And just, like, fuck them. Fuck everybody. And I was still dressing like a thug and, like, listening to rap and, like, doing all types of dumb shit. Not to say that rap is dumb, but the way I was listening to it was dumb. And I was annoying. I was like that fucking annoying ass dude on the bus. Fucking has his headphones in, but he's like rapping all the lyrics out loud. And they're like gruesome and like just very like hateful lyrics. And I didn't care. You know. Thought I was cool. Whatever. Anyway. I went to my guidance counselor. I was like, yeah, I want to go to medical school. And she was just like, nigga, you go to medical school? Are you fucking kidding me? She looks through my grade. That was the sentiment. She did her best to try to dress it up. She was like, let's take a look at your grades. She looks at my grades. She's like, there's like C's and fucking F's. I fucking failed beginning algebra, bro. She was like, you can't. She was like, you know, she's like, to go to medical school, you need like a 4.0 GPA. She's like, you have too much. You're not doing well. And I left that meeting and I was pissed. I was fucking pissed. Like that. At first I was like, yeah, she's right. Like, what the fuck do I like? Why? Like, who the fuck am I to think that I could become a doctor? What fucking crazy? Who the fuck? Like, yeah, who the fuck am I to believe that I could be a doctor? And I caught myself. And I said, no, I am the one. If I say I'm gonna be a fucking doctor, I'm gonna be a fucking doctor. Fuck that bitch. Fuck that bitch. She don't know me. And from that day onward, it was a wrap. It was over. I buckled down. I really started focusing. I really started studying. I really started reading from the textbooks directly. If I didn't know something, I would go to the professor, to their office hours, and ask them very detailed questions. I would go to tutoring. I did everything. I took that beginning algebra F, I turned it into an A. I was not fucking around. I wasn't playing. I got pissed. I got angry. And anger is good fuel. But it can cloud the senses sometimes. Because even during that whole pursuit, I always knew I couldn't even envision myself actually going about the day-to-day practice of being a physician. I knew what they did. I couldn't envision myself doing that on a day-to-day basis. So what plan did I actually have for when I got there? I didn't know. And so I pegged myself to something that I was like, I can hold on to. I was like, surgery. Surgery sounds really fucking cool. Cut people open all day. Deal with blood. Sign me the fuck up. I'm a gruesome ass nigga. So it was something I was able to like cinch onto to give me the fuel to keep going, the motivation. And it did, it worked. But again, I would always, at those moments where things would be quiet and I would really sit with myself, I would say, this isn't really what I want to do. But I've already embarked on this path. And there was a moment between graduating, getting my bachelor's degree, and actually applying to medical school where I hesitated. And I said, I'm gonna take some time, figure out, is this really the route that I wanna go? And one day I was hanging out with a friend of mine, well, friend, more like friends with benefits, fucking friends. And she was telling me, she was like, I told her about my plan to take a year off, just figure shit out. She's like, no, don't do it. Just go ahead, just put your fucking application in. I said, I passed the deadline for almost most of the schools that I want to apply to. There's only really 5 schools left open with their application open. She said, fuck it, just send it. I said, all right. I said, all right, whatever, fuck it. Right, what do I got to lose? I sent the application, and after that, I started building up a tutoring business. I was working at a job at the front desk of a clinic, and trying to get myself make myself a better applicant by having like medical exposure and stuff like that. Fucking hated that job. God damn. I would sit at the front desk, say hello to everybody coming in, ask for their insurance, collect their co-pays, do X, Y, and Z, whatever. It all just became a numbers game for me. Because one of the things they wanted you to do was make sure that you get everybody's copay. Make sure you get everybody's copay. Don't let a single soul walk through that door to see that doctor without getting that copay, motherfucker. Because it would happen sometimes. So my numbers were good. It came time for like the 30-day evaluation or some shit. Supervisor pulls me into the room. Your numbers are great. You're collecting all the copays. I'm like, yeah, that's what the fuck you guys wanted, right? Your attendance, whatever, you're on time, blah, blah, blah. We only have one problem with you. I said, what's the problem? You don't smile enough. I don't smile enough, motherfucker. I was mad. I was tight. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck you want me to smile about? If I don't feel like smiling, I'm not gonna fucking smile. I'm not a person that smiles for no fucking reason. I quit that job 2 days later. Fuck it. I was like, I'm not going into this shit. Anyway, saying that to say this, I started my own little tutoring business. And I started in about a month, I was making the same, if not more money than I was making at that clinic. And this is completely tax-free money. Alright? Uncle Sam ain't have to know none of this shit. Right? This was before Cash App, before Venmo, before any of that. Everybody paid cash. Everybody understood. Paid cash. Right? So there was no tracing of any of this money that I was getting. Most of it, at least. And yeah, I was making good money. I was just running around all over the place, driving my little Toyota, going here, teaching Spanish, going here, teaching English, going here, teaching biology, going here, teaching chemistry. Boom, 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 just bouncing all over the fucking county, right? I started getting so much clientele that I needed to hire another tutor. So I started reaching out to friends that I went to school with, letting them know I got this, I got this thing going on. I got people, that are hitting me up. Tutor, told them I was like, we'll split it down the middle, 50-50. I'll get the clientele. You just worry about the tutoring. And these people are paying anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour. Sometimes $150 an hour, depending on what you're teaching them. So it was good money. I didn't know shit about anything. I was like, I gotta open up a business account, a separate bank account just for my business. So I opened up a bank account with Capital One, back when they still had brick and mortar locations. And yeah, I just started organizing everything, started looking into getting an LLC and all this shit. And then the fucking school, one of the fucking medical schools sends me a letter and tell me that I got accepted. Couldn't fucking believe it. And I said, holy shit. I said, I gotta stop all this now. Like, I can't do both of these things at the same time. It's too much on my plate. I'm not gonna run this business and go to medical school. I've heard there's people that do that. I'm not that kind of person. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because I was like, if I'm gonna go to medical school, I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna really learn this shit inside and out. So I don't want a distraction with something else. Man, I went to Capital One, walked up to the teller and told them I'm closing my business account. They said, why? What happened? I told them, I said I got accepted to medical school. They were like, oh wow, well, good luck. I said, thank you. Well, fast forward, go to medical school. I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well in the classes. No problem understanding the material whatsoever. I enjoyed it. I'm a nerd, really, at the end of the day. What can I say? I'm a nerd. I like biology. I like chemistry. I like cellular biology, molecular biology. I like biochemistry, microbiology. I like all that shit. I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating learning about nature because really that's what it was that started the whole that like began that direction was really my love for nature. I've always had a love for nature before I started going to school. Even even as a kid because I would spend a lot of summers back in Dominican Republic, which is my home where I was born. Spent a lot of summers as a child, you know, in the campo, in the country, right? And in rivers, with animals, in the jungle, in the mountains. And that was my shit. I loved being there all the time. And I used to cry when it was time for me to leave. I used to really, I hated leaving. I hated leaving. I just wanted to be there all the time. It was funny because then once a lot of the pressures of medical school started bearing down on me and I started to feel like I'm giving my life over to something that is bigger than myself and that I fundamentally don't agree with. Because this is another thing that I used to wonder about medicine, about the pursuit of medicine as a child. I remember having these thoughts as a kid, as a child. I used to always ask myself, why do people struggle so hard to live? Why do people go through these lengths of taking all these different medicines that make them feel weird or like get hooked up to machines and all in an attempt to live? I'm like, they're gonna die anyway. We're all gonna fucking die anyway, so what's the big whoop-de-doo? Why even have a pursuit of trying to extend your life when you know you're going to die? And guess what? If death's knocking right now, like, why don't people just let themselves go? I was like fucking 8 years old thinking this shit. Why don't people just let themselves go? I don't get it. And I still felt that way. Even as an adult, even in medical school, I still secretly, like deep down inside, felt that way. I was like, why are we doing all this? It doesn't make sense to me. It never made sense to me. And then I started to try to explain it to myself. And I said, well, because yes, people are going to die, but they want to hang on to be there for the people that they love and blah, blah. And I'm like, well, then why can't the people that they love just accept the fact that they're going to die? And let them go in peace. Because I've always had a very different relationship with death. When people would tell me that such and such died, I wouldn't really care. The only time that I ever had a reaction to someone dying was my father dying. Clearly because it was my father. But like uncles, aunts, extended family members, I would just be like, alright, so what? Even if I knew them and I spent time with them, I would just be like, alright. C'est la vie. My father deeply affected me. For many reasons, obviously, because he's my father, right? But never at any moment did I have the wish or the desire or the thought after he had passed, oh, he should have been here longer. No. There was a deep part of me that accepted the death, but still mourned it for the fact that he was my dad and I missed him. And I felt bad for the fact that I felt like he just went at the wrong time, right? But it always feels like the wrong time. But somewhere deep in my core, there was an acceptance to it. It was okay. Let me check to see what's on with my daughter. So I still had those ideas even when I was in medical school. But, I kept the pursuit. And one of the biggest things, I told you I was trying to prove a point to everybody. Nobody would have expected a thug such as myself to have made it that far, right, in academia. But also, at that point now, it started to become a resource thing, right? I just wanted to make money. And even though I realized the fact that I fucking hated being in hospitals, always. So, like, by the time my third year started and I started doing clinical rotations, my first clinical rotation, I was there for about maybe 2-3 weeks. And I fucking hated it. I fucking hated every single fucking minute of it. I did not like the people. I liked the patients more than I liked the people that I was working with. A lot better than the people that I was working with. Maybe it's because it was psychiatry. It was psychiatry. But I mean, I didn't really have a good time in any other clinical rotation after that, except for, and I would make the admission, that I started to have a good time in other clinical rotations after the fact. Let me go back to psychiatry. Went to psychiatry, didn't like it at all. Went to my dean and I said, I want to drop out of medical school. I'm done. Sick of this shit. She said, no, hold on. Just take a leave of absence for a little bit, figure your life out, come back, and keep going. I said, fine, I'll do that. Boom. I go, and I take this little leave of absence, and I'm just like, figuring my shit out. I don't even remember what the fuck I was doing, honestly. Came back to medical school, like, alright, let me get myself together, like, let me, like, at least finish this shit, see it through to the end. I started it, let me finish it. But deep down inside, I just didn't want to do it. I honestly didn't want to fucking do it. And then I get to all the clinical rotations and I'm approaching everything with a very good attitude. I'm waking up early as fuck in the morning. I'm sober. I'm not doing any drugs whatsoever. I'm not smoking weed. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing shit. I'm waking up early as fuck in the morning. I'm working out first thing in the morning. You know, going to my clinical rotation right after that, going to the hospital, just banging shit out, man, just being like a fucking star, bro. Like, even the attendings, like the residents, everybody was impressed. They're like, holy shit, this motherfucker. Had people coming up to me telling me, like, you're operating like a second-year resident already, and you're just a medical student. And I'm like, bro, when I put my mind to something, and when I apply my mind to something, I know I can fucking do it, right? It's not a problem. And I remember being in internal medicine and there being this weird case with this guy who came in and he had like this altered mental status and nobody could really figure out the origin for his altered mental status. There was no signs of infection. There were just like no like crazy lab values of anything going on. Like he wasn't diabetic, he was nothing, you know, but he had like this strange elevated uremia. And I think like a bump in his creatinine. Basically, I know I'm like doing a little bit of doctor speak right now, but basically to say that his kidneys weren't functioning properly, so we thought, oh, this guy needs dialysis, even though he had no past medical history of any kind of renal disease whatsoever. But he didn't really see doctors like that, so you don't really fucking know what's going on with him, right? So we're like, all right, give this guy dialysis, because, you know, sometimes if somebody's kidneys stop working, you can get a buildup of toxins in your bloodstream that will make you confused, okay, and alter your mentation. And so, gave this guy dialysis. His blood levels go back to normal. His ammonia levels go back to normal. He's still out of it though. And so now the values on the computer screen and what we see doesn't match. Right? And so now everybody's really scratching their fucking head. And so that night I went back home and I was like, tomorrow morning I'm gonna figure out what the fuck is up with this guy. And I went and I got all my tools, all my physical examination tools. I'm talking about everything. And then I went in the next morning and this guy's laid up in the ICU and I walk into his ICU room and I did a complete physical head-to-toe examination on this guy. Everything. I mean, he's knocked out cold. There's a lot of things I really can't do, but I did everything that I could do, right? And I noticed that his pupils were very constricted, and his respiratory rate was very slow. And his respiratory rate, I counted it as like 12. And on the vital sheet, it says 20. And nurses are notorious for just writing down 20 a lot of times. They don't... Who the fuck sits there and actually counts how many times somebody breathes in a minute? Almost nobody does that, right? But I did that. And I'm like, this guy's respiratory rate is 12 per minute. His pupils are very constricted. And I was like, is this motherfucker on heroin? And I was like, hold on. So I go back to the attending and the residents, and I tell them my findings, and I explain to them what I'm thinking, and I'm like, I think this guy should get a drug test, and then I'm like, because I think to myself, I'm like, somebody must have gave this guy a drug test at some point, especially if you come in with altered mental status. That should have been one of the first things that happens in the emergency room when he comes in. I go through the record. Yes, a drug test was ordered, but it was never collected. It was just lost in the sauce. So I go back to the team and I tell them, boom, boom, these are my findings. Yes, there was a drug test ordered. It was never collected. This guy never had a drug test done on him. Everybody's like, oh, shit. Holy fuck. Get a drug test on this guy right now. Comes back a few minutes later. Sure enough, this motherfucker has high levels of fucking opiates in his system. Wow. Right? And then everybody's like, holy shit, what a catch, motherfucker. Like, how did you get that? And I'm like, I was just fucking thorough, bro. And that's one of the things that started pissing me off, is because I started seeing things like that happening over and over and over and over and over again in many different types of ways. And look, I understand. Nothing is perfect. You gotta work with the system, the way the system is. Fuck off. Bullshit, bro. Because, you know, the thing that pissed me off the most about medicine is that it's basically human laboratory rats that were running in and out of this fucking medical system. And then a fucking bed czar comes down from sitting in some fucking office somewhere counting how many patients are on each unit and how long they've been there. And if somebody's been there for quote unquote too long, you need to kick them out. Even if you know that they're not ready to go home because they don't have the right support system to be home. And so then there's a lot of like blending between societal problems, poverty, and medicine, all coming together into this big tangled fucking mess that honestly I personally didn't want to fucking deal with. Didn't have the fucking patience to deal with. And number three, felt like there was an overarching system of profit. Pharmaceutical profits, hospital profits, insurance company profits that were trying to push you to operate one way when your humanity was telling you to operate in a different way. And so there was always these conflicting things. And it's like, why did nobody do a head-to-toe physical examination like that? Why was I the only one that did it? Because I, as the medical student, am the only one that has time to do that. Once I become a resident and I have fucking 20, 30 patients on my list, you think I'm gonna have the time to do that with every single fucking patient? No, I'm not, right? So you have to be really, really, really fucking sick for somebody to actually take the time out to really study you and really study your body and really see what the fuck is going on with your body. And you think like these primary care physicians, these family medicine doctors, which is the residency that I ended up in, have the time to deal with your shit? Like, they got 15 minutes to see you. And it already took 5 minutes for you to walk in and out of the door and get situated and shit like that. So they only got 10 minutes to talk to you. And during those 10 minutes, they have to document everything that was going on in that room. So half the time, they're looking at the fucking computer screen. So a lot of our training was, how do you target the most relevant problems that this person's dealing with and the amount of time that you have, and then get them out the room fast, right? So I'm like, okay, so I'm just a factory worker for humans. So we bring it back full circle. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather be a factory worker at an actual factory that's dealing with inanimate objects than dealing with the very delicate chemistry and biology of a human being. That's just me. I think it's very disrespectful to a human being to treat them like a fucking assembly, like a product on an assembly line. And that shit made me sick. And I voiced these concerns. I voiced these concerns multiple times to supervising attendings, doctors that were above me. And people would tell me things like, "Oh, but because you feel that way, that's the reason why you should be a doctor." And I'm like, and sometimes I fell for the bait, especially in the beginning. I was like, I guess they're right. Somebody needs to be here to change the system. But I'm like, you know what? Who the fuck am I? Not who the fuck am I, but why the fuck would I give my own blood, sweat, and tears to combat this fucking system that is built for profit? You think that, wait, hold on. You think that I'm gonna really work within the belly of the beast to try to change the beast, and it's not gonna turn me into one? You really think it's not gonna turn me into a beast? Like, I don't know. Maybe I could have done it. Maybe. But that's not where I was trying to apply my energy at the time. And maybe it's because my energy was getting sucked away in other places, in other things. But maybe I was allowing my energy to be sucked away in other places and other things, and I was allowing myself to be distracted because I didn't want to deal with that primary challenge that was in front of me. I don't know. And so still, I sit here and I think, and thinking makes you gay. So I'm not gonna fucking think too much about it. I just know that I was miserable there. I felt like it was a constant uphill battle that I didn't want to fucking fight. It was a constant uphill battle that I didn't want to fucking fight. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm gonna drop it. I'm gonna leave it all behind. Fuck it, I'll figure out something else. It took me a few years. I'm still figuring it out, kinda. But now I have a clear direction of where I'm going next. Or a clearer direction of where I'm going next. And it's nice. It's nice. Sometimes I do feel like I gave up a worthy fight. But I do realize that I didn't really give it up. I just chose to fight differently. Because one of the things I didn't tell you guys is that the whole time that I was in medical school, I was also studying plant medicine. I was studying herbalism, and I was studying medical spirituality. Or spiritual medicine, I should say. And I learned a lot. And so I graduated as an MD. I went to medical school, but I also achieved a lot of things in the realm of shamanism. And that's something that some people don't know about me. A lot of people don't know about me, except the people who have been treated by me in that way. And what I would say is this, what I've learned from that is this, that even plants themselves function as aids to push our consciousness and to push our physiology in a certain direction that will make us healthier, or I should say will make us more whole. Because when you're diseased, you're not whole. You're missing something, right? And so plants help push you in a certain direction that can make you more whole, if it's the right plant for the right person at the right time. Because not all plants are right for you at this time, right? And all doses are different. Methods of preparation, methods of ingestion, all alter the way these plants affect your physiology. So I say that to say that the ultimate healing comes from within. The ultimate healing comes from your spirit being indomitable and saying, whatever is missing right now is not really missing. It is just lacking and will be completely retained and will be completely re-energized, reinvigorated, reestablished, right? And so again, healing comes from a freedom of the spirit. And I think maybe that was a certain kind of intuition that my 8-year-old self was hinting towards and getting towards, realizing that the pursuit of medicine was in and of itself pretty foolish, because there was a certain kind of knowing in that child that there is no pill, there is no potion, there is no elixir that will save you. You can only save yourself. And a shaman or a healer or whatever it may be is not a person that's going to give you a potion, a pill, an elixir, an X, Y, and Z to make you feel whole. They may have to operate that way so they can meet you where you're at. But the best shamans, healers, physicians don't believe in their medicine. They believe in you. And they believe in your ability to heal yourself. And the best shamans, healers, and physicians are people that build a rapport with their patient, not to be nice to them, but to be able to influence them, to be able to plant seeds in their mind and in their soul that cues that soul and that spirit to recognize and realize and remember the fact that they have the ability to heal themselves. That is the function of a medicine man or woman. The pills, the elixirs, the potions, the herbal preparations, all that stuff is just placebo. It's just there so you can meet the person where they're at, because they don't believe in themselves yet. And they've placed their belief in you and in your medicines. So you give it to them. All while trying to reestablish and reignite their knowing of their own personal power. And this is why psychedelics are some of the most potent medicines out there, because psychedelics have the ability to do that for people. You can give a psychedelic to somebody as a shaman and just walk away, and you literally don't do anything whatsoever, and that person figures it out on their own. Not everybody's built that way. You have to, there's the right candidates that you can treat that way, right? But it's a thing that can happen. So, I sometimes think of myself as the doctor that was too much of a doctor to be a doctor. I feel like I've pursued this path multiple times in multiple lifetimes and have accrued more and more and more knowledge about how healing actually works. And then when I got to this lifetime and I ended up pursuing that path again, it just all blew up and was like, this is stupid. Especially in the form that we see it in now. in this time and age in this society. This is stupid. I'm not gonna play a part in this. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna do this other thing. But mind you, I still carry this message that I want to get across to people. That you are your own healer. And it goes back to the original message that we started this with. You are the one. You are the one of your life. I got injured the other day, sparring Muay Thai. It hurt a lot. I couldn't even bear any weight on my leg, right? My ankle smashed into this dude's elbow. Really, you know. At the time, whatever, I walked it off, and I just kept banging. A couple rounds later, I still don't really feel much. It wasn't until the next day I woke up, and that shit hurt like a motherfucker. Couldn't bear any weight on it. I still put my, right, I woke up 4:30 getting ready for work, put my clothes on, put my boots on. I tried to take some more steps. I was like, this ain't fucking happening. Called out of work. And you know, there's ibuprofen, there's this, there's that, there's a bunch of shit that I can do. And like, you know, earlier, because I'm starting to mature more as a medicine man. Because I may not practice medicine as a physician, but I still consider myself a medicine man. If somebody comes to me looking for help to become more whole, I'll help them. But they have to come to me with honest intentions and an open heart and be ready to work with themselves. That's why I don't have too many patients. Anyway, so, but I said to myself, I said, you know what? I said, I'm gonna heal this on my own. And I laid in bed and I just closed my eyes and I went into a deep meditative state. I was floating in that place between wake and sleep for a few hours. And the only intention that I placed in my mind is that my foot was gonna heal. And that the pain was gonna be gone. And I set an alarm for myself. And all throughout those couple hours, I'm kind of like going out, back in, like this. And then my alarm goes off. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get up now. I get up out of bed. I take that first step. No pain, none whatsoever, none. I was good, completely healed. All it took was a few hours of deep meditation, and intention, and will. And some people would hear that and say, fuck what, you didn't put any ice on it, you didn't take any ibuprofen? No. No ointments, no, nothing. Nothing. Just this and this. You know, it's really interesting to see how one man's will can move the earth. Because I've had people tell me some interesting things. I've had people come to me with pains in certain places, and I would go and I would talk to them, and I would put my hand on that place that's hurting them and talk to them and kind of just distract them with conversation while I'm holding that part of their body. And I'm transmitting a message to their body with my hand. And I'm just talking to them the whole time. 15 minutes later, I'll let go. And I'll walk away and start doing some other shit. And then all of a sudden they turn around, they're like, my arm doesn't hurt anymore. What did you do? I'm like, I didn't do anything. They're like, no, you did something. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm trying to show the people that the power of intention is the most powerful thing there is, my friend. You can, with the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And that's real talk. That's real fucking talk, man. You know? And that's why I say, man, this whole medical system exists to turn everybody into slaves, including the same doctors and nurses that work within that system. And I just couldn't be a part of that. I could not be a part of that. You're not going to drain me of my life energy to continue propagating that system. You know what? I don't need to be a part of this system in order to change it. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's what people inside of the system try to tell themselves to keep working through it. Oh, I'm gonna be the change. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're still inside of it. You're so indoctrinated, you can't even see the right solutions to get out of it. And the higher you go into that system, the more indoctrinated you will become. And the more of an image that you need to maintain, and the more of a reputation that you need to uphold, and the more of a certain way that people are going to expect for you to communicate and talk about things. And the more that your lifestyle around you is going to rely on the income of that job. And the more time that you feel drained, the more you're gonna feel it necessary to upgrade your lifestyle, to make up for all the suffering that you've gone through, right? And enjoy the pleasures of life, to make up for all the suffering that you're continuously going through day in and day out in that career, right? And so you become the beast. You become the same thing that you said you were going to change and that you were going to fight. And I've seen it happen so many times. And I really sat there and I looked at all the people that had been in that career for 30, 40, 50 years. And I really looked at them and I looked at their spirit and I looked at their soul and I asked myself, do you want to be like them? And I emphatically said, no. And that was my answer. I don't want to be anything like that person. I can see their whole aura. I don't like it. I don't want to have that kind of aura. I'm sorry. So, boom. We're out of there. You know? And it was the best decision I ever made in my life. Honestly. Honest to God. And I don't regret any of it. Going to medical school was a great decision. I learned so many things about how the human body works, about how it doesn't work. I learned so much about how medicine does work and how it doesn't work. You know, and those are invaluable lessons that can never be taken away from me. You know, so I cherish all of it. You know, I'm $250,000 in debt right now. I don't fucking care. Don't fucking care. Whatever. That shit'll figure itself out some way, somehow. Whatever, right? But now I'm here on the other side and I see things clearly for what they are. And I'm pursuing a different path in life, you know, like I got a family, I got kids that I need to feed, you know, so I'm a working man day in and day out. And like I said, I'm a blue collar dude now. I went from a white coat to a blue collar. Check that out. And like I said, I enjoy every day of my life, man. I enjoy, like, I really like my income being tied to something that's not hurting people. At least not directly. You know, it's not hurting people directly. So yeah. I didn't mean to give you guys my whole life story today, but that was just a piece of it. So anyway, this guy at my job now knows that I'm a doctor. And he was like, wait, hold on. He was like, if I came to the doctor's office and I saw you there, I'll be like, nah, not this nigga. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you know me, because you know the non-professional me, right? Because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just another nigga. Fuck. All right. Ooh, what a life, man. And this movie's just getting started. So sit back and stay tuned for the rest of it. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be real good.